Our focus on this presentation is around alcohol-fueled violence and its presence in today's society. There are many mechanisms in place to attempt to combat the issue, but there is a strong need for further strategies to be put in place. Research has consistently implicated alcohol use with violence due to its capacity to reduce users' abilities to control their emotions. In recent years, alcohol-fueled violence has become an increasing community and governmental concern. In Victoria, the amount of reported alcohol-related family violence episodes increased by more than 50%, and alcohol-related assaults increased by 49% between 2001 and 2010. Similarly, between 2000 and 2012, there were 24 King hit-related deaths in Victoria, with 73% of these cases involving the use of alcohol.
You might not associate Sydney with extreme drunken violence, but a recent spate of unprovoked alcohol-fueled attacks have killed a number of innocent young men, forcing politicians to take unprecedented action. 19-year-old Thomas Kelly was killed after a single random punch. His attacker received 4 years for manslaughter, to his parents' disgust.
A joke, an absolute joke, and we're horrified.
Another victim was Michael McEwen. He was just seconds from death in the back of an ambulance, also punched just once by a stranger. Following brain surgery and many days in a coma, he survived.
I couldn't move my legs, so when I woke up, all I do was move my hands and tap my feet, and I didn't know whether I'd be able to use them again.
Wearing a cap to protect his skull, he's making good progress.
We've got to think about those things. If he dies, I'll have to write a eulogy, and I was thinking, what am I going to say about him? So those sorts of things going through my mind, yeah.
Michael's father and other parents have been calling for tough action.
It's going to take a long time, but I think we've only got one choice, and that's to change the culture, to change our society.
Take it from me, one punch can be lethal.
Prompted by the attacks, boxer Danny Green fronted this TV campaign.
His life ruin yours.
But Sydney politicians have gone further. They've introduced an 8-year minimum sentence for anyone convicted of causing death through drunken violence. Critics say the highly unusual legislation is extreme.
Almost to person, the legal profession is aghast. Mandatory sentencing removes the discretion of judges to impose appropriate sentences. That's appropriate to the circumstances of the offence and the person who committed the offence.
There's a clampdown too on licensing laws.
This is the heart of Sydney's nightlife, where many bars are open 24 hours a day. But that is now set to change. Doors will have to close at 1:30 in the morning. The last drinks will be served at 3.
Sydney's tough new stance against drunken violence is controversial. Other countries grappling with the same issue, like the UK, will be watching closely. Jonathan Samuels, Sky News, Sydney.
In an attempt to tackle this emerging problem, state and federal governments have introduced various initiatives, all with limited results. In 2008, Melbourne trialled the newly enacted Control Reform Amendment Act 2007, initiating a 2 a.m. lockout that prevented licensed venues from permitting entry and re-entry from this time. However, the lockout proved rather ineffective. During the trial, there was an increase in assaults committed between midnight and 2 a.m., and the lockout trial was shown to have little impact on alcohol-fueled violence. Recently, in a tough-on-crime response, the Victorian Parliament enacted the Sentencing Amendment Cowards Punch, Manslaughter and Other Matters Act 2014, in response to public campaigns and petitions. This created a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years with no parole for one-punch manslaughter by encompassing one-punch deaths within Unlawful and Dangerous Act manslaughter. Whilst this is an improvement to previous legislation whereby one-punch assaults causing death were charged with common law manslaughter by Unlawful and Dangerous Act, it has still failed to prevent further alcohol-fueled attacks from occurring. The recent death of Cole Miller after being cow-punched to the ground in Queensland, who have adopted similar but harsher legislation to Victoria, makes clear that these changed laws are not enough, and that properly implemented social and environmental crime prevention initiatives are needed in an attempt to change Australia's drinking culture and reduce the number of incidents of alcohol-fueled violence. To combat alcohol-fueled violence, environmental crime preventative techniques can be considered to manage a particular environment with the intention to reduce the criminal act itself. Crime prevention through environmental design aims to influence human interaction in a particular manner that sees the reduction of criminal behavior. A core technique is surveillance, whereby eliminating the opportunity for the offender as a result of their belief that there is increased risk ultimately results in prevention of that criminal behavior. In applying rational choice theory, if drunk and violent individuals are aware there is surveillance around them, they will ultimately deem the crime futile due to its increased risk of being identified. By increasing formal methods of private security in locations where alcohol is prominent, such as bars, clubs, and main streets, this could reduce instances of alcohol-fueled violence, as individuals would be aware of constantly being surveyed. In addition to these recommendations, the use of social crime prevention methods could assist in creating a root cause solution through social programs as well as educational and support services. Social crime prevention aims to reduce offending through investment in human capital and infrastructure by early intervention and inclusion programs. Tertiary social prevention programs aimed at changing the attitudes and behaviors of alcohol-fueled violence offenders has proven successful under initiatives such as the Screening and Brief Intervention Program in the UK. Through this program, offenders were more likely to gain awareness of the risks associated with alcohol-fueled violence and the impact of those risks on their personal lives and the wider community. Implementing similar social programs within Australia would no doubt have comparable results, particularly when governments are more likely to engage with targeted social prevention methods and not just wholesale population approaches. This, paired with school developmental programs aimed at identifying and mitigating risk factors early on, such as poor impulse control or potential for substance abuse, could shift the developmental trajectory away from delinquency and further prevent generations from experiencing similar alcohol-fueled violence. Australia is in the midst of an alcohol-fueled violence epidemic, with crimes involving alcohol occurring nationally on a regular basis. While state governments have taken steps towards addressing this issue through legislative changes, there is clearly a need for an even more proactive crime prevention. Although not the only crime prevention options available, there is clear evidence that employing SEPTEM techniques such as increasing formal surveillance along with social crime prevention programs aimed at early detection and rehabilitation will not only assist in making this type of crime riskier to commit, but potentially identify a root cause solution.